So, how do the government and the rail companies justify the increases? Well, Mark Reckless is the Conservative MP for Rochester and Strood, and he joins us now. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
This is a really bad time to be paying more to get to work. This must be hurting your constituents very hard.
I mean, it certainly is, and I don't think I'm here to justify the increases, but what I would like to do is just give a bit of background to what's driving these increases. I mean, first, I think at last we are getting inflation down, and last year we saw the increases based on RPI of about sort of 5%, whereas this year it now looks like it's going to be more like 2.5%. And we come in Kent from a system we had before where the previous Labour government singled out southeastern trains to get RPI plus 3 increases, whereas the rest of the country had RPI plus 1. So we are at least seeing the train fares which are fair across the country, and the reason we're still having increases is because of the huge amount of borrowing that we're having to deal with, and the inability to get this money from taxpayers. So fares are going up, but I think it's key that what we deal with is the railways and some of the really very high costs in the railway system, which I think are unjustified, and I think what we need to do is to deal with those so we don't see fares going up so much in the future.
Yeah, so you are justifying it to a certain extent, Mark?
Well, I mean, you said just now, you gave some examples of fares going up by up to a certain amount, and what we had is we're going to have about 2.5% inflation. What I would like to see is rail fares going up not by that inflation plus 3%, but as we managed to do last year, following a really strong campaign by Kent MPs, and I particularly single out Tracy Crouch here, who did an awful lot of work as the MP for Chesham and Elmstead. We were planning to see an RPI plus 3 increase as we had seen under Labour, but actually last year we managed to lobby both the Treasury and the Transport Department and got that to come in at RPI plus 1 rather than RPI plus 3.
And why haven't you followed suit this year with salaries freezing and comparatively, obviously it's going to hit harder?
Well, as the MPs, we're keeping up the pressure, and what I'd say is last year it was only actually relatively late in the year, and quite a lot later than now, that we succeeded in that campaign. And I think one thing that did help us last year was because inflation overall was so high. I just think seeing 3% upon that was leading to such big increases, adding in the much higher inflation we had, that I think was a key part of the campaign. But another element of this is what's called the flex system, where there's a sort of RPI plus 1 or an RPI plus 3, but then the train companies are allowed to sort of alter the fares by up to sort of 5% around that. And all we hear about is whenever they choose to sort of single out a particular area for whatever their reasons are for a higher sort of increase, that's then the increase that everyone sort of hears about, whereas actually some other areas have to have low increases to the extent they're allowed higher ones elsewhere. And I'm just not sure if southeastern trains use that system properly, and in particular say in Medway, where we have a lot of competition from the coaches, and people who can't afford the trains at least have the option of getting sometimes sort of cheaper sort of coach service into London, even they have to sort of get up earlier, even if it takes longer. And I think that bites into southeastern when they do put up the increases so much. And if southeastern was sensibly commercially managed, I would have thought they'd be looking to have somewhat lower increases in the areas where perhaps people are less well off, and in particular the areas where they've got strong competition taking away their business by the coach services.
And that is happening. I mean, we were hearing this morning from one passenger group. We heard from one passenger group this morning, Mark, that this does go some way to kind of decreasing the attractiveness of travelling on the train, full stop, for people in the southeast.
I mean, I think that's right. And I mean, there's many people who've got jobs where those jobs are in London, and frankly, they don't really have choice except to go into London. And if people do look for sort of local, I mean, some people do get good jobs locally instead of travelling into London, but very often the salaries are lower. But then people, are seeing so much of the extra salary they might get if they do have a job in London eaten up by the train cost. And that's why I was so pleased last year we did at least manage to hold it at RPI plus 1 after years and years of southeastern being singled out for RPI plus 3 when other places in the country didn't have that.
Mark, will you be continuing your campaign and committed to bringing down that level down to retail price index +1 anyway?
I certainly will. Under the stated policy, the RPI plus 3 is only intended for a small number of years, and then it would be RPI plus 1. But last year we succeeded in stopping it being RPI plus 3 and getting RPI plus 1. Having a high inflation rate, I think that really helps our campaign with that. But myself, Tracy Crouch, other Kent MPs, we will keep on fighting for Kent commuters, particularly on the southeastern services, and try and ensure we get better value for money.
Thank you very much. Mark Reckless there, the Conservative MP for Rochester and Strood.